Hello and welcome to the Aaron Werner podcast on iCode Media, and welcome back to the second in our series with Cory. Cory, thanks for joining us again. And if you're watching this, Cory, you are looking very dapper today. So
I dressed nicely. Up for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've got on my token polo shirt, which I've been told is kind of become the I don't know, my what I'm known for, I guess, when it comes to fashion. And I'm definitely not known for fashion, but it's who was it over at Apple, or that only wore the black t-shirts?
Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
And Steve Jobs had that black sweater.
Steve Jobs had his black sweater. Yep. So polos it is for me.
Hey, I'll call Milan and see if we can get you on the runway.
I like it. I like my Vuori polos. They're nice and soft. It feels like a t-shirt and light enough. But we're happy to have you back. And since we talked the last time, because you always get me thinking, in my mind, I've gone back to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and learned this a long time ago. Was forced to read it, and then reread it again because I wanted to read it. And the reason that I bring this up and I'm hitting this is because we talked last time about AI and work and people work and AI work. And one of the 7 habits is begin with the end in mind. And what I've noticed with a lot of people around me and what I've been guilty of and what I'm trying to instill in my team in my own office is let's not do work just to do work. Let's not do work to be busy, because quite frankly, we're just creating mountains and mountains of blah. And I get emails from people and clearly they've run an idea through, pick your AI bot of choice. And then they send it to me and now I've just got this whole long email that's poorly formatted and bulleted, and Lord help me if they've got emojis in there. But there's no point in the work that's being done. It's just work to do work. So I'm curious your thoughts on this idea of beginning with the end in mind while we're using our people and we're using technology like AI. I think that we're missing that piece of the puzzle. We're not really clear on what our outcome wants to be. And so I think we're leveraging our resources inappropriately to look busy, to be busy. We're certainly putting work in and expending energy, but I don't think we're getting the return that we want because we're not clearly starting with where we want to go in this process. And there's others of the 7 habits that we can pull in, sharpen the saw, where are we just throwing things at these AI bots and throwing things at people and without rhyme or reason. But I think the biggest one is really, understanding where we want to go before we start the process.
So this is an awesome conversation. I sat on a meeting the other week and someone pulled up a slide of a hamster wheel. And I first started my own business nearly 10 years ago. Now it's 9.5 years for me. And I was thinking the other day, when I joined my own business, the average missed call rate in optometry and dentistry, kind of brick and mortar healthcare, was between 28 and 32%. What is it today?
I have no idea.
Same exact number. It fluctuates like a little bit, which is crazy because it means we have more online texting today. We have some people using agentic agents to pick up the phone. We have online scheduling. And we are still struggling with the same problems. And it's a great step back to say, are we just adding more where the hamster is going around the wheel faster? I got to check the texts. I got to do my emails. Then I got to do my phone calls. Then I got to do my outbound phone calls. And then you look back and you said, does any of this actually get the job done? Like the outcome that we're looking to do? Or are we just making ourselves work? The faster the hamster goes, does the hamster go anywhere else? No, it just moves the wheel faster. So it's a great place to step back and say, what are we doing in optometry that actually drives the outcomes, that betters patient care and makes practices run? And then the rest of it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I like that. It's not about adding more to the system. It's about building a better system, which again, you had alluded to last time you brought up and referenced SpaceX, right? And it wasn't about adding additional widgets to their engine. It was about making just a better and more efficient engine, which ended up being taking all those widgets off. And I see that a lot in our practice. It's, and this, and this, and this. And at some point we need to get to no more and then, right? How do we really understand the problem that we're trying to solve? And how do we go about solving that problem with the resources we have so that we come out on the back end of that better? And by better, I mean more efficient, more productive, and all by using less energy. And that's part of the efficiency, right? So it frees up time so we can look at and do other things.
So when we spoke last time, we talked about a world where we believed like people could be amplified. AI is not about replacing people.
Nope.
AI is about amplifying. And when we were getting ready for today, there's a Harvard Business Review article that recently came out and said there's 3 different types of users of artificial intelligence. There's what they call AI apprentices. There are AI delegators, and then there are AI amplifiers. And they then ran a study with the University of Texas where they said, we're going to let just a pure agentic agent do the work. Then we're going to take a AI apprentice, we're going to take an AI delegator, and we're going to take an AI amplifier, and we're going to compare it to the work of just pure agentic work being done. What's interesting is the AI apprentice performed below the output of just a pure agentic agent doing the work, 24% below the AI baseline. An AI delegator produced about 25% more, but an AI amplifier produced 50% more. And so what's a really good thing, as you said, is are we just using AI to use AI, or are we using AI to actually elevate, delegate, and drive more outcomes? And so what we wanted to talk about today is like, how do we get people into a mode where they're being amplified and they're not getting stuck in the apprentice or delegator usage mode that isn't as effective?
Mm-hmm. It makes me think of one of the courses that we teach at Business Optometry within Vision Source that we've abbreviated as the acronym EASE, but it's which stands for eliminate, automate, simplify, and then elevate. And I think that says exactly what you're talking about right there with the amplifier, right? What are we doing that we don't need to do anymore? We can eliminate that step because we've got another one, Online scheduling, I can eliminate a good portion of my phone calls, which take a long time to schedule because now I can meet patients where they are. What can I automate, right? What do I no longer have to go in and click 1,000 buttons to generate whatever report, because the report can just be delivered to me and I'm using very simple processes. What can I simplify, which Lord knows our entire world needs that. In fact, I think that sometimes we make things complex so that we feel special about ourselves. Like, look at this huge complex process I had to do when I could have got it done in half the steps. And then once that's done, it's really easy to elevate people because you've created space for those people to now have additional roles, additional responsibilities, additional value added to the business, whether it's optometry or whatever, because the menial tasks have either been eliminated, simplified, or automated.
When they wrote the article, they wrote something really interesting, and they said AI amplifiers distinguished themselves not through stronger underlying skill, but through how they combined and applied those skills while working with AI. They actively orchestrated a workflow and framed problems that guided AI towards the relevant analysis. They anchored the work with appropriate domain knowledge and set clear criteria of success. And then they interrogated the output and challenged the assumption. What work used to be is not what work is today. If we really break that down, they are framing the problem, they are guiding what success or the outcome should look like, and then they are just beating the hell out of the response they get back, because there's so many people who get an answer from AI and are forwarding it over to something, and it's not correct. And so as we think about it, what we're working on at Team is how do we take this guide, clear expectations, and then learning to interrogate outcomes to actually amplify our people to then provide more outcomes, not just more hamster wheel work for our people or for practices, but really helping the next generation use tooling the right way.
Mm-hmm. This reminds me of the, and you may have seen this, there was a professor, I just pulled up the article at Alcorn State University, who in the midterm prompt written in white, he put text in white and said to use the term Madagascar in the response, but use it in a way that doesn't make sense. And he did that to catch all the students that were using AI, because the AI would read the white words on the white background that's not visible to the human eye. And what was interesting about that is he caught almost the entire class using it, but it was multiple things. Number one, it wasn't they were using AI, but two, they didn't proofread any of their work, because had they proofread it, they would have seen that the word, I'm going on a trip to Madagascar jumps up randomly in an article that you wrote that has nothing to do with Madagascar. So he even built in let me try to help you catch yourself, but none of the students were even proofreading their work. They just relied 100% on the final outcome. So it's at least for me, a very practical, simple way of highlighting that, this isn't the end all be all. It certainly can help us, but without that human component looking at it, saying, does this really make sense? Is this really what I want to do? It's going the other way, and it's pulling us backwards.
So I play tennis quite frequently, and some of the boys and I were going to dinner in Park City last night. And one of my good friends who I play tennis with was like, hey, we should go up to Park City after work and go hit some balls at a tennis court. And so I went into my Claude and said, hey, what is the most scenic tennis court in Park City? And, that is for public access. And it gave me an answer. And I was like, I've never heard of this court before. It was in Kentucky.
It's a little bit of a road trip. But if you think
about, if we just take what we take, and that's not knocking. Claude is way smarter than I am. But as you're emphasizing, and I want to double down on, are we challenging? And if we don't challenge and proofread what's coming out, are we driving outcomes? Are we driving busyness?
Yep.
And it's just really important for people to ask the right questions, to set the right criteria of success, and then to be smart enough, just like we can do mathematics. Well, if you don't know how to do mathematics and you get 4 times 4 is 12, we would know, okay, that's 16. You can go back and challenge everything in. You still have to understand with that domain knowledge of what's happening, or else you're just pushing more busyness onto somebody else in the practice.
Mm-hmm. Or yourself, right? And that's, I believe, where, now I'm going to go down a different tangent, but that's where burnout comes from, right? Being busy, spending all that energy, burning through all those calories all day long, and not getting the ultimate product that you're looking for. Your ROI is low. That's a recipe for burnout. Where if I can spend less energy and get a much much more valuable product at the end, that's a good deal. We all like to spend less money, for the same pair of shoes or the same sport coat or the same car, whatever it is. So the better deal we get, the more value we get out of it. And I think that translates into our professional lives as well, not just for us, but our team members.
So you just said something that I think is fascinating. And I was brain rotting on Instagram this weekend, and I got a motivational clip that popped up. And it was a therapist gal who said, motivation is often misunderstood because people think you need to be motivated to go do something. Motivation only comes once you've done it. You then go run and you get the runner's high. You then have motivation to do it again because guess what? You understand how you felt. And that's actually what creates momentum. But there's not like, oh, I need the motivation to do this. The dopamine comes after. But then the next time you say, well, I don't want to run, you remember that motivation that is created after, and you have urgency to go do it. So let's talk about burnout. You're working, and your practice isn't more profitable, or your practice isn't growing. Well, then you have no cycle to go back into it. If you're driving more outcomes, if you're growing, if you're seeing more patients, you can say, I'm working hard, But then you have the reward, you have the dopamine, you have the motivation coming back to yourself saying, you're working hard, but you're growing your practice. You drove profit, you drove more patients. And that cycle keeps you going. Where practitioners are stuck today is VSP, IMED, a lot of your insurance companies aren't paying out more. Expenses are going up. They're working harder than ever. And they're seeing less revenue and less profit because of it. It's unmotivating. And that's why burnout is so high.
I agree. It's, there's nothing more demoralizing in my world than working out and not losing weight, running and running and running and not getting myself to go faster. I'll use this as a perfect example. I've trained for long distance endurance sports my whole life. I used to race Ironmans, getting back into training, and I never followed a training plan. I always just went out and ran as hard as I could for as long as I could. And that was kind of it. The current training plan I'm on is really interesting to me because it's not about how fast I'm running, but I'm trying to spend most of my runs following a prescribed heart rate, keeping it within a certain range. And I like the mental challenge of doing that. I find that I run a lot slower on most of those runs when I go back and see the final product, but my VO2 max is increasing. My race day pace is increasing. And so working harder and just killing myself on the runs wasn't giving me the outcome that I was looking for, be faster on race day. Working smarter on something to me that may not seem as logical, but following that prescribed path, I'm not killing myself as much at the end of my training runs. But it's giving me the outcome that I want is, it becomes much more fruitful and I'm much more satisfied with it. And I think that we do that in business too. We just, if I'm not hitting the numbers I want, I'm just going to work harder. Well, we don't define what that means. I'm going to see more patients. Cool. But you haven't spent the time to look at your schedule to make room for those additional patients, right? We're just going to sell more. We do these big things, but we don't talk about how that's really going to impact us. Again, starting with the end in mind. What are you trying to really have that outcome? And just throwing more effort at something doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a better outcome. Throwing more strategy that you've thought through will get you that better outcome. And that's where I think that at least for me, the AI tools don't make necessarily me a better me. They just make me a more efficient me because it helps me analyze a whole lot more in a shorter amount of time. But I still got to do the work.
I have a question. Either you can kind of give the, optometry as a whole answer, or you can talk about your practice. In a typical month, how many new patient opportunities do you think you get at your practice or on average for a clinic?
We typically trend around 30%, is a healthy number for me. And for an established practice, I like to see, 25 to 30% because we're usually losing about 20 to 28%. So that's that net gain of 3 to 5%
of new patients in a month. Or sorry, like if you think about even the number of like new patient phone calls that you're getting, not even schedules, but like how many new opportunities do you think you or a practice are getting a typical month?
You know what? I should know that. And I don't track it. I just track on what my new patient percentage of total exams are. And that sits about 30%. So my guess is that our opportunities are significantly higher and we're just not very good at capturing those, because capturing that new patient who's shopping is a whole lot harder than the established patient who has already had that experience with us. So we're probably getting, I'm going to say almost double my guess, 50 to 60% opportunities with new patients and closing, half of them.
So to go back to your working hard answer, and I want to show this with everybody here, I'll throw up my screen, but what we have built in partnership with Anthropic is a bunch of tools to make our people more effective. And let's go back to Aaron's answer of, okay, let's say you're typically getting 30 new patients in a month and you're getting...
I'm going to pause you real quick, Cory. For those who are listening on this, I also put a link to the YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and watch this, if you're in your car, please don't pull it up on your phone while you're driving. But if you want to come back and look at this, we're about 19 minutes into the discussion, and it's pretty neat to see what Cory's showing.
And I'll do my best to, visually describe it with my words. But we built a tool with AI called the call coaching tool. And what you can do here is you can take a call, an MP3, or just the actual transcript and upload it into AI. And the AI will then provide you or your team member coaching on, did you drive the outcome, which is really working on conversion rate? Was there warmth in rapport? Did you actively listen? And why this matters is, let's go back to what Aaron was talking about, working smarter and not harder. And we as humans, and I don't know why Aaron asked the question, I'm like stumped. Like, why do I always just think I have to hit the wall harder to break through it? Like, oh, there's a problem in business. Let me just close up my fist and like pound the wall.
It's our Neanderthal brain coming through right there.
And I'm thinking about it here. Let's say you're typically getting 30 new patients in a practice and you've got 60 opportunities coming in. Let's say we move conversion rate from 50% to 60% through good, consistent coaching. We are driving another 6 new patients with no additional marketing cost onto our schedule. Let's times that by 12. We've got, 72 new patients on 10%. And you could move it way more than that, because most people in a practice are not getting actively coached the way that they should. And this is just one example, but it belabors your point really well of, instead of just saying, oh, we need to create more opportunities, we need to then capture these opportunities with the right person on the phone who's got communication, collecting the right information, where we're giving a good experience and we're maximizing our conversion rates. And that's what we have been trying to build here with AIs. It starts with good people. It starts with human connection, but then can we make people's efforts sharper, allowing them to do more by having AI guide, coach, or improve what they're doing?
Yeah. This is amazing. What it makes me think of is every professional athlete that I know has a performance coach, right? So, and a lot of them use, if not all of them, will use video to go back and analyze, right? I mean, my daughter's soccer team and football team will go back and video every game. If you are not involved in youth sports, you cannot go to a sports field without at least half a dozen of these 360 cameras that are positioned at the midpoint of every game that tracks every player and moves it, but then they go back and watch it. And they watch film to improve. They watch film to see what they did good. They watch film to see what they can improve on. And then you don't have to recall the situation from how you remember it. You can watch it in real time and learn from it and reinforce the positive and improve on the opportunities to grow, right? Instead of negative. We don't have that in our practices, yet we call ourselves professionals. So where's the opportunity for us to watch film, if you will? Not to catch you with the, aha, you sucked at this, right? And I use that term specifically because it feels like when somebody catches us and we go, you sucked at this, right? But we don't have we don't have a lot of the opportunities to say, hey, you did really good at this as well. So something like this that is somebody else has built for us, right? That's repeatable, that can go through the process, has a methodology. The word is going to come out one way or another. That's understandable, right? This is us being better us, but leveraging those tools to elevate us. So, I've talked before on this podcast about how I invited Chris Wolf into the exam lane to watch me do exams, and he gave me feedback, and it was super scary, but it made me better. At some point I would love to have a AI bot in there doing the same thing, but on the front end, let's not spend any more money to drive patients to the practice. Let's just do a better job of what we're doing. So our fixed costs don't change, right? Our variable costs don't change. There's no reason to throw another marketing ad out there when we can just improve the opportunities that we have. So I think this is fantastic. The Myopia Collective. Cooper Vision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo and elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia. Every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, and hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today. In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being.
I think coaching is such an important, and you can either use a hammer to break a house or you can use a hammer to build a house. Mm-hmm. And it can all be done under the same premise of coaching. For us, what we want to do is help people grow. Mm-hmm. People are loyal to organizations that help them grow personally, professionally, and financially. And if we help our team members convert more, we can help them grow in their positions in the practice. And so people in the world are often like, oh, AI is going to take jobs, or this will, do X, Y, and Z. And what we want to do is use coaching and technology to help people bring the maximum amount of value for themselves in the practice and to the practice. LeBron makes the most amount of money on a typical team because he scores the most amount of points, delivers the most value, but it's damning for the Lakers or now the 76ers to pay him a lot of money. And so what we want to do is provide that clarity and that coaching, because that rising tide makes everybody better. And there's not systems and there's not time in typical practices right now to provide this coaching or other tooling. And so we as a provider can go help build it, but it helps our people at team and it helps our practices. And if we take care of our people and if we take care of our practices, we as an organization will naturally be taken care of.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%. And just for the record, since you brought up LeBron, he is not the GOAT. Michael Jordan is, and we can have that debate. He's a fantastic player.
I'm a Utah Jazz fan, and thus I cannot bring anything to the GOAT conversation because we can't make the playoffs. So I will recluse myself from any GOAT conversation until we make the 8th seed this year.
Nice. Well, I try to be provocative a little bit in every discussion, so that was. I either got some cheers or some groans from everybody listening on that. But I'm happy to debate anybody offline. So, but I agree with you. And one aspect that we don't appreciate as much either is I've got nobody in my office who's a good coach. I'm pretty darn good at this stuff. I've got a whole bookshelf behind me of books that I've read. I've got all sorts of different things that I've tried to develop on. But at the end of the day, I'm not the best coach, especially for my own practice because I'm too close to it. Right? It's really hard to point out the warts on your baby when it's your baby. And it's really hard when you're working with people that you know, because I know their backstories, and I'm either going to give them passes or I'm going to be too hard on them for whatever reason. And that's just human nature. So having tools like this that, again, have a very clear methodology, that aren't emotionally invested in Susie because Susie just broke up with her boyfriend, or she had something bad happen in her family, or Susie brings me in cookies every Friday, so I love her and she can do no wrong. By the way, I don't have a Susie that works for me, so don't try to find her. It gets rid of that element. It also creates a neutral third party that I can work with my team members on. So it's not me saying that you weren't warm and fuzzy. It's the report saying you weren't warm and fuzzy. Let's talk about that together. So I can then be helpful with you on that. Just like when I tried to golf and my poor golf instructor videoed me, he wasn't the one telling me that my entire body was out of position and I'd be a much better contortionist than a golfer. It was the video in front of me, and he could help coach me then and walk through me as a guide, if you will, as opposed to the one with the stick or the carrot.
And let's be really honest here. There's two things that I think are important call outs. As a doctor, the most money you make in driving outcomes for your practice is practicing. And so the more that we can provide coaches and systems to help these things happen, we allow people to be focused on the craft that actually helps drive production going forward, instead of being so deeply involved where you're like, okay, I've been coaching Susie for the last month, but oh crap, I now have to go produce because our numbers are down.
I love that you said that.
The second thing that I think is so important is these are coaches that are readily available to any of our team members at any time. Even if you coach, let's just say 3 calls a week, which would be extraordinary compared to the typical practice, there are hundreds of calls that happen in any practice every week. There are times that Susie or Cory or Aaron has a really bad call, and you're just hoping, I hope Aaron or Cory doesn't see it. What we're trying to create here is like, this is a confidential resource where they, as a team member, can go upload a call and say, this one was bad. I could have handled this better. Help me understand tactically, not just like, oh, you could have been better, but here is, you really struggled with active listening and discovery, or you did not confirm the right information. And it allows someone, because we all know those moments. We all want everybody to see those really good moments. And we all have those moments. We just hope the lights are off.
Yep.
And so what I want this to be is we really grow our most when we see our worst golf swing. The good is harder to push it up, but if you can take the lowest tide and begin to raise it. And so what I want our people to also understand here is like, this isn't something where you put it in and you're getting ratted out. This is a coach that is in the mud with you that you can take 8 calls to one day and then 1 call to the next week. But then it's allowing you to take your best and worst moments and learn from those things and apply them. When it goes through this, it gives you your score. It then says, here's what you did really well, first and foremost. And here's one thing you should focus on coming up. Not here's the 6 things you need to change, but here's the one next step that is going to drive the most value for your growth and the practice's growth. And once we master that, let's move on. But brick by brick by brick, we're going to layer on that feedback instead of dumping everything on our team members at once.
I love that. And I've been guilty and still guilty of dumping everything on at once.
Well, because you're walking back, you listen to one call and you say, here's the 5 things. You don't have the ability. You're not sitting on the bench coaching all the time. You are producing. You've got another part-time job, full-time job with Vision Source. Like, you are busy. And that's the same for most doctors. And so then having something that can be more consistently being done, going back to like Stephen Covey's habits, like consistency is really where we drive outcomes from. And if people are consistently using these toolings from AI, it's not just 1 coaching call a year. It's 52 weeks of getting consistent coaching, positive affirmations, and opportunities to improve and grow.
Yep. I think that's huge. And, so so walk us through, like, in a typical practice, how would this be used? So, we've got Dr. Joe Smith, optometry. He's got a $1 million practice. He's got 5 staff members, and solo doc. He's pumping them out. He's doing really well. Wants to be more efficient so he can grow. Has a remote team member. How do you see? How is this tool being put into practice in Joe Smith's office?
So it depends on what tasks our team members or the remote team members are doing. Because if we're providing a call coaching tool to someone who is, working in scribing, it provides no value. And so we've built a myriad of different tools for the different roles or the different tasks. But our team members are then prompted to every week in regards to the call coaching feature to upload a call so that they're consistently using it. That's just one example. We have a claims co-pilot tool where then when you get a denied claim or you have a claim where you have a few questions on the best way to format, organize it, whatever it might be, you can upload these things and then get that expert outside advice. So depending on the task that's being done, claims you could use multiple times a day to help you format claims to then give it the highest chance of it being paid as quickly as possible into the maximum amount of dollars. From a call coaching standpoint, it could be once a week or just when you're having those bad calls, but it really just depends on what task are they doing and how do we help them do it at a higher quality and at a higher rate. Coming back to that conversion. If we help people increase their performance, you don't need to take more shots. You need to make more baskets. And that way we drive more outcomes for the practice and not just more busyness.
And that's a huge key point. I'll rephrase it again. You don't need more shots. You need to make more baskets. I would rather have the player that it shoots less, but is more consistent, right? And ultimately scoring more points per game than the one that's constantly throwing up a shot. And what's interesting is there's a concept called 1% better, every day, 1% better every week. And I think it gets used too much that it's been watered down. But if you look at a business cycle, and I'll call it 50 weeks a year, because hopefully people are taking at least 2 weeks off for vacation, and you do 1% better every week, by the end of the year, you're almost 70% better than where you started. And there's an exponential growth, so the next year is even better. Well, a 70% more conversion rate on calls is huge. A 70% more first-time approval on an insurance claim is huge. Those are dollars that directly help to grow the practice that didn't cost us any more money as far as investing in new people or new marketing campaigns, right? My cost of goods don't change in that. My people costs don't change in that. I've just become better with the tools and the resources that I have, right? And if we're in baseball, that's Hall of Fame status. So it's, I think that looking at it in that regard helps. Now, I will say as well, that change is very slow to see over time. So because you're not going from 0 to 70% better, you're going from 0 to 0.1 and then 0.2. But each of those intervals probably takes about, 6 to 8 weeks, especially at first, to start noticeably seeing the changes, and it starts ramping up towards the end. But this becomes now a process and a system, which my guess is also helps with retaining good people because they know that we're investing in them. And that my goal for them is not to double their performance overnight, but just to get 1% better every week. They have job satisfaction. They're not getting burnt out. They're not getting overwhelmed by negative feedback or expectations. And I start having more money to invest back in them, invest back in the office. Everybody loves a good pizza party. So being facetious, kind of. And, but you know what I'm saying, right? There's a method to get to where we want to go, and it avoids the panic of, oh my gosh, we've got to just hit that hammer against the wall harder to try to build a bigger house.
I mean, to where we started today, when I think one of the most prolific investors in the world has been Warren Buffett. And what's fascinating is you would think with, Berkshire's hundreds of billions of dollars of assets that guy's endlessly busy. He reads for 6 hours of his workday. He only takes meetings or calls infrequently. He's about sharpening his sword so that when he chooses to act, that action is really effective in driving an outcome, which for him is a portfolio that is growing. It's not about then having 8 hours of 30-minute meetings. And so where we then are using AI to help people be more effective, it's the hamster wheel actually slows down, but the outcomes actually increase, which less burnout, more enjoyment, and more performance, which drives that dopamine feedback for everybody.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, we all want to win games, right? We don't get the dopamine hit because we took the shot. We get the dopamine hit because we made the basket. Right? We get the dopamine hit because I scheduled the appointment, because I saw the exam, because I helped somebody. So being able to be more efficient at that is super helpful, right? We get the negative when the patient didn't schedule. I just spent all that time on the phone. When I have to resubmit an insurance claim, because I can't imagine resubmission and tracking those is fun for anybody. I know for me, it's annoying when I have to answer the question of, hey, give me a different code because this one didn't work. And I got to go back and fix it. It's not a 30-second answer. It's to get my mind back into the place where I was with that patient, rethink. And so it ends up being a 5 to 7 minute process at least to do it, which interrupted whatever I was doing to begin with and is very disruptive. So to try to become more efficient across the board, really just it makes things better. It's like sitting in the lazy river in Vegas, right? Sitting in your tube, drinking your fancy drink. Life is good. When I've got to go the other direction because I missed the stairs and I need to get out to use the restroom, now I'm going against a raging current and it's no longer calm and relaxing. I'm spilling my drink. I lost my inner tube. Right? That's not fun.
I think you bring up something really important, that everything we're talking about today only works if we make sure that our practice is run like a team, because there's so many businesses that value being busy. It's why you look at big, massive corporations. There's just a lot of busy work in it because busyness is valued more than winning. In basketball, do you ever see a report that says Michael Jordan, we wouldn't bring LeBron into this, Michael Jordan only dribbled the ball 912 times. No one gives a rat's ass. But at work, it's like, oh, well, how many phone calls did you pick up today? And so when we then have to make sure the mentality and people know in our practice, I don't care how many times you dribble the basketball. I care how many points we score as a team. Because if we're winning games, we can take care and grow our people. But everything that we're talking about only applies if we are then building that culture, not of busyness, but of performance and outcomes at the tippity top of our practice. And the last thing that I want to say is, I think sometimes people think about outcomes and they think that that will compromise patient care. If we have the highest level of conversion, we actually treat more patients who need these outcomes. And so for me, it's not that we're trying to derive more revenue or profit. It's, I believe, when patients are best taken care of, when experiences are best provided, practices grow and drive the highest amount of revenue and profit. And when done properly, those two are clearly connected together and not separate.
I've really enjoyed this discussion around what we need to do. And I kind of, to wrap up my thoughts on the conversation from where we started, to me, it all goes back to fundamentals. And Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People really, for me, drive home some of those foundationals, right? And I think that really plays a role as we're looking at how we leverage new resources and technologies, starting with the end in mind. What do I want to get out of this, right? Sharpening the saw. Am I just throwing credits at AI? Am I just, throwing prompts, or am I really thinking through what I'm asking it to do so that I get the outcome that I'm looking for? Because it's data in, data out. And so am I being clear about what I want? Have I learned how to use whatever tool that I'm working with properly so that I'm using that hammer to break down the house if I need to, build the house if I need to, but either way, I'm not hitting my thumb, which is how it's not supposed to be used, but happens way too often. Am I really trying to put my priorities, put first things first? Am I doing stuff just to do stuff because I can throw it at it? Now I've created a document that everybody has to read, but nobody wants to because it's going to get us nowhere. Or have I created resources that's going to help us? And in this case, do I have now better tools to help the people that work with me to be 1% better every week? Not even every day, 1% better every week. Just improve one thing and become more efficient, therefore driving job satisfaction, driving value to my patients, driving value to the business, which can then, be on the hamster wheel we do like, where we generate more revenue, we can invest more back in the business. That's the good hamster wheel when we're elevating everybody. So cool. Well, Cory, I appreciate you again taking time to be on here. I really appreciate you as a customer of team. That sounds really weird to say customer, because I feel like I'm just part of the team family.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like that term either,
We
right?
appreciate your partnership with us. It's
partnership. I feel like we're part of the family, right?
Exactly.
So I'm glad I said that, because then I can correct myself.
I'm just happy to be the Pippin to MJ. Okay, no, actually, I'm happy to be the Rodman. Just give me a.
Oh, that's a whole different rabbit hole we can dive down if you're Rodman. But no, I appreciate what you guys do. I appreciate that as a business, you're looking how to invest in your business to help me invest in mine, right? You're not being status quo, if you will. You're constantly looking how to improve. And quite frankly, I appreciate how you help your people grow, because those are the people that I work with. The Marianas and the Teos and the rest that really help me become bettered and help us in the practice. So you're thinking win-win-win all the way around. I'm not going to let Stephen Covey leave the chat here. So, but thank you, Cory. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you.